Fear Point, Episode 1, Squatters. Written and performed by Kevin Duffy. It was nearly 4:30 when Liz left St. Mary's Rec Center. The old church's charity dinners were more than welcome on these increasingly chilly November nights. Soon the first snows would fall, and it'd be harder for her to make it to them. But for now, Liz's belly was full, and she had somewhere safe to head for the night. Liz was in her early 40s. She was tall, blonde, and pretty underneath a layer of wear provided by the streets. The sun had just started to set when she rounded the corner to Spruce Street. The old Colonial, where she had been sleeping for the last month, was supposed to be demolished last summer, but due to some disputes between the local historical society and the developers, the demo was halted till early spring. Despite the mold, mildew, and leaky spots in the roof, the house was actually pretty well kept. The walls were thick, the windows were for the most part intact, and many of the rooms had their own fireplaces, so fear of freezing wasn't as big a concern as it was in past winters. Liz made her way up the street, past the lots of former homes. Some of them had had newly poured foundations, some of them were completely bare. The house closest to the old Colonial was actually only half demolished. The developers didn't even fence it off for public safety. I guess with Spruce Street being smack dab in the middle between local warehouses and the beginning of Lock Woods, they weren't too concerned about townsfolk coming out here and getting hurt. She made her way around the back of the Colonial to the bulkhead. It was left open, which was a sign that not all of her fellow squatters had made it home yet. They only closed it once they knew that everybody had made it home. There was a warm glow emanating from the basement, which means someone had lit the basement fireplace already. As she shambled down the creaky steps into the cluttered basement, she heard someone grunting in the far corner. It was Jerry, an elderly man in his mid-60s. Jerry was prying at one of the walls in the basement with a crowbar. "Jerry, what are you doing?" Liz asked. Jerry jumped at the question and dropped the crowbar. "Oh, Liz, you scared the life out of me. I didn't hear you come in." Liz stepped closer, holding back a laugh. "Sorry, Jerry, I didn't mean to," Liz replied. "What are you doing with that wall, though?" Jerry bent over and picked up the crowbar. "Oh, well, you see, I was going through some of this old stuff here," and Jerry pointed at all the boxes filling the room, "and I found a blueprint for the old house. Apparently, there's another room off of here." Jerry clanged the crowbar against the wall to show where the other room was. "Another room? What do you think's in there?" Liz asked. Jerry turned towards the wall. "Not sure, but I've heard some stories about the original owners of this house. Someone told me once that there's a fortune that was never recovered, so maybe it's a room chock full of gold," Jerry exclaimed. Now Liz couldn't help but laugh. "Well, you be sure and share that pirate treasure with the rest of us, yeah?" Jerry's smile stretched wide across his face. "Yar, matey." They both had a good laugh about that. "Is anyone else still out?" Liz asked. "No. Tyler and Otis made it back about an hour ago, and Jenna hasn't really left the room much today," Jerry said, turning back towards the wall. Liz turned back towards the bulkhead, headed to lock it up. "All right, then. I'll lock up for the night." After locking the bulkhead, Liz went back to the basement staircase. Jerry was already back to work prying the notch in the wall, which admittedly did resemble the cutout of a doorframe. The first floor was a bit bigger and brighter than the basement. This was due to the lack of clutter and a much larger fireplace in the main living room. This is where Liz found Tyler and Otis sitting in some dusty old armchairs around the fire, smoking some cigarettes. Tyler was about the same age as Jerry, while Otis was anywhere between 80 and 200 years old. "Hey, guys," Liz called over as she entered the room. Tyler and Otis both turned in their seats and waved at Liz. "I brought you guys some extra sandwiches from the church if you're hungry." She put the plastic bag full of sandwiches down on the table. "Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to tell Jerry about the sandwiches. Can one of you guys go and give him one?" Otis stood and walked over to Liz. "I'll bring him down one in a few minutes. Is he still down there digging for buried treasure or what?" Otis laughed. "Yeah, he was trying to pry open a hidden door or something." "Is Jenna still upstairs in her room?" Liz asked. The two men nodded. "All right, then. I'm going to bring her a sandwich, too." The upstairs hallway was dark. The only light was coming from underneath the 3 doorways of the bedrooms. They were lit by their respective fireplaces. Jenna and Liz's room was at the far end of the hall. Liz walked to the room and knocked. "Come in," Jenna coughed from inside. Liz opened the door and went in. The room was an awkward L shape. This was to make up for the main staircase which ran below and the attic access which ran above it. Liz and Jenna's bed, which they shared, was in the corner of the room directly across from the main entrance. That's where Jenna was sitting when Liz entered. Jenna sat, arms outstretched in front of the mouth of a very small fire. She was a rail-thin woman in her early 50s with frizzy red hair hanging down to her waist. "Hey, I brought you a sandwich," Liz said, tossing the tinfoil wrapped sandwich to Jenna. Jenna caught it and nodded in appreciation. "How you feeling today? Any better?" Liz asked. Jenna coughed for a short spell. "Not really. My chest hurts more today. You might want to sleep in another room. There's no sense in getting you sick, too." Liz walked over and placed a hand on Jenna's forehead. She was warm to the touch, but not burning up. "Don't be silly. If I was going to catch this, I would have caught it by now," she laughed. "But I did grab you some ibuprofen from St. Mary's. They had a whole bunch of these one-dose packets for anyone who needed them." Liz handed 2 of the packets over to Jenna. "What would we do without you taking care of us?" Jenna asked. Liz had become the de facto caretaker for this little group. This was in part to 2 things. 1, Liz being the youngest member of the bunch, so venturing out into the world was a little easier. And 2, maternal instincts from her past life. Liz wasn't always like this. She had a great life once. She had a family, a husband, 2 young children, but a drunk driver took everything away from her. After years of wallowing in despair, not being able to work, she found herself out on the streets. But she found a purpose again, taking care of this small group of friends. It helped fill the void of her loss. "Ah!" The scream that bellowed through the house snapped Liz out of her memories. Jenna and Liz ran downstairs. Tyler and Otis were standing in the archway between the living room and the kitchen, staring at the basement door. It was Jerry, I think," Otis whispered. He lifted the wrapped sandwich into the air. "I was just going to bring him this, and I heard him scream." The group exchanged frightened looks with each other. "The wall probably collapsed on him," Liz said as she bolted for the basement door. Before she could reach the door burst open, and Jerry spilled out onto the floor, covered in red. "Paint, it's got to be old paint," Liz thought as she looked him over. But then she noticed Jerry cradling his left hand close to his chest. But that wasn't quite right. There was no left hand. He was cradling a bloody stump. "Jerry!" Jenna yelled from behind Liz. "What happened?" It was in there. The fucking thing was just in there. I didn't see it till my hand. It bit off my hand," Jerry frantically said. "Belt," Liz yelled to her friends. "Who has a belt?" Tyler quickly unclasped a dark brown belt from his jeans and handed it to Liz. She ran over to Jerry and tied a tight tourniquet above his elbow. He winced in pain, but he did not object to the first aid. "We need to get him some help. Someone has to run to one of the warehouses and see if any of the security guards are there or they have a phone or anything," Liz said to the others. "I'll go," Tyler said, but before he could leave, a bestial growl rose up from the basement. The group all gave each other terrified looks. "What the hell was that?" sputtered Otis. That's it, rambled Jerry. Liz quickly ran over to the basement door and slammed it shut, throwing the bolt lock in place as she did. No sooner had that bolt slid in place did the door shake with the major impact from the other side. Liz jumped back, her eyes narrowing on the thin black bolt. That 2-inch piece of metal was all that kept whatever the hell was in that basement from getting to them. "What do we do?" Jenna practically screamed as the door was hit a second time. "We need to barricade the door. Grab the chairs from the living room and wedge them between the door and the fridge," Liz ordered her friends. Otis and Tyler ran out of the room. The door was struck again and again, and the bolt was starting to give. Liz could clearly see the wood starting to bow at the screws. Tyler and Otis dragged the chairs back into the kitchen and arranged them almost yin and yang against the door in the fridge. The next several bangs on the door proved that the basement door would not give. The group breathed a little easier as the thing in the basement made its way back down the stairs. "Okay, whatever it is, it's contained," said Liz. "Start looking for another way out." The group exchanged concerned glances, but all nodded in agreement. "Jerry, do you think you can make a trip over to the warehouses or into town?" asked Liz. "I don't know, Liz. I've lost a lot of blood. I'm feeling kind of woozy," replied Jerry. Liz studied Jerry closely. His face was sweaty and pale. She wasn't sure he would survive the trip into town. "We have to try, Jerry," Liz said, rubbing his shoulders. Jerry shrugged. "I can probably make it to one of the warehouses, but if we have to go to town, you might as well just bury me right here." "All right, someone will have to be at one of the warehouses," Liz reassured him. "All right, everybody, we're going to go. Get your things. We need to make a move quick." Just then, a loud metallic clang echoed from behind the house. The thing in the basement just threw open the bulkhead, Liz thought. She then eyed the group, who all just came to the same conclusion. "Maybe it'll run off into the woods," Tyler said, trying to sound optimistic. That was cut short by another growl from the left side of the house. "It's circling the house," Otis noted. Liz frantically looked from the back door to the front door. Separated by about 24 feet, if the thing came in either one, they'd have to be able to make it to the opposite door fast and make a break for it. She explained as much to her friends. "We should maybe unlock the basement too," Jerry added. Tyler and Otis quickly dismantled their makeshift barricade. The group heard another growl from the front porch, along with what sounded like nails being dragged over a chalkboard. "What is that?" Jenna asked, covering her ears. "Claws," was all Liz could say in return. The group started backing up further into the kitchen towards the back door. Otis reached it first and started to fiddle with the handle. He realized the knob lock was engaged and he had to turn the dial to unlock it. All at once, the chalkboard finger sound stopped. All eyes fixed to the front door. The silence stretched out for what seemed like an eternity, until Otis broke it by throwing open the back door. "Oh, fuck this," he said as he went to step through the open doorway. The thing flew out of the darkness and slammed Otis onto the kitchen floor. It was massive, with rubbery black skin, like what you'd see on a killer whale. It appeared to be quadruped, with paws like a grizzly bear, complete with razor-sharp yellow claws. Its fore and hind legs were thick and vaguely dog-shaped, while its head resembled that of a bat, with huge ears and a massive nasal cavity. It foamed at the mouth, as its lips curled over jagged rows of razor-sharp yellow teeth. Otis screamed with what little air he had left in his lungs. The thing, which was taking us all in with its totally black eyes, seemed to have forgotten that it had landed on him. But his struggles re-engaged its curiosity, because it then bent down and licked Otis's face with a horrible black tongue. Would have seemed almost playful if it weren't for what came next. The thing snapped down and wrapped its maw around Otis's face. His screams were even more muffled, bouncing off the inside of the thing's throat. Blood began to run down over the top of Otis's head, accompanied by a terrible cracking sound, like a tree branch tearing away from the trunk. Liz knew they couldn't save Otis. They all bolted for the front door as he let out one final, indecipherable scream. Then the only sound that they heard was a wet slurping sound as the thing in the kitchen continued to eat Otis's face. Tyler reached the front door first. He unlocked it, but as he threw the door open, their hearts all sank at the sight of the wooden planks. They'd been nailed in place since well before the group settled here. They looked back where they came from. The thing was still chewing on Otis, but they didn't dare go back to the kitchen to try to sneak past it. "Upstairs. Try to get out from one of the bedrooms," whispered Liz. The group quickly scrambled up the steps and paused in the hallway. "Which room?" Tyler asked. Liz stepped forward. "We might be able to get out in me and Jenna's room. We have that little covered porch. We could probably swing down over it." They hurried into Liz and Jenna's room. As soon as they closed the door, they heard the thing downstairs give off a growl and start to move through the house. Tyler went straight to the window and tried to lift it open. He was struggling. The thing would not budge. "The fucking thing is painted shut. It won't open," he said. "Let's go try another room," Jerry panted. He turned the knob and peeked into the hallway. After a few seconds, he opened the door wide and cautiously stepped in. You could hear the thing downstairs looking for them. Jerry crept over to the next room in the hallway, which happened to be Tyler and Otis's room. As he turned the knob and began to push it open, the door let out an audible creak. The thing downstairs bounded for the staircase. Jerry turned to run back to Liz and Jenna's room, but paused for a second, considering hiding in Tyler and Otis's room instead. This moment cost Jerry everything. The thing made it to the top of the stairs and leapt for him. The group was spared seeing the horror of Jerry's last moments because Liz quickly shut her door, but that didn't stop them hearing it. Jerry frantically screamed and struggled, but after another loud pop and snap, they heard nothing. Jenna wordlessly beckoned Tyler and Liz to the attic access. The three quickly climbed the rickety attic staircase and made their way up into the attic. The attic, similar to the basement, was overly cluttered with dusty old boxes and junk. "We need to hide," Liz told her friends. They spread out through the attic, each finding their own hiding spots. Tyler stood on the far side of the attic behind a large brick chimney column. Jenna squatted down right of the staircase behind a big pile of boxes. Liz went to the opposite side of the stairs and crouched down behind a wide dresser. No sooner had she gotten into place did they hear a large crash coming from the room below. It just broke into the bedroom. Breathless moments ticked by as they listened closely for any sign of the thing. The next sound that they heard was it stepping back out of the door into the hallway. They all breathed a sigh of relief. until Jenna began to cough uncontrollably from her hiding spot. The thing was back into their room and at the attic door in seconds. Jenna's coughing stopped just as it breached the door. The unstable stairs proved a momentary obstacle for the hulking thing as it slowly made its way up them. The stairs creaked in protest at every single step. Liz saw it as it stepped into the middle of the attic. Its head was swinging side to side, no doubt listening for any sign of them. Its left ear twitched. It did an about-face, eyeing the boxes that hid Jenna. It slowly started to stalk over to her, crouching lower every step it took. It was gearing up to pounce. There was nothing Liz could do. She knew that. She had to try and stop it. She picked up a busted table leg from beside where she hid, just about to step out from behind the dresser when Tyler let out a battle cry from the other side of the attic. The thing whipped its head around as Tyler rammed into its side with an old wooden coat rack. The creature, not expecting an attack, leapt forward on impact, but the momentum of Tyler's charge helped arch the thing well past Jenna's hiding spot, towards a part of the attic that was nothing more than a few rotting joists and some thin insulation. It smashed through as if it were made of paper and went crashing into what would have been Tyler and Otis's room below. Realizing this might be their best chance for escape, Liz ran out from behind the dresser. "Downstairs, quickly!" she yelled. They hurried down the attic stairs, pausing only at the sight of Jerry's mangled body laying in the hallway. His throat was torn out, along with a massive amount of tissue damage to his chest and torso. His organs were gone, giving the body an odd bucket-like appearance. They crept by Jerry's body, trying not to slip in the puddle of blood which had spread from it. As they stepped past Tyler and Otis's room, they caught a glimpse of the creature and all the chaos that it caused as it fell through like a monstrous wrecking ball from the ceiling. The thing lay sprawled out over what appeared to be a crushed couch. Dust and insulation spread out all around it. It was slowly moving, clearly dazed from the fall. Not wanting to be upstairs when the thing eventually regained its wits, Liz, Jenna, and Tyler turned the corner and made their way down to the first floor. Jerry's blood, which puddled above them, had spread over far enough to reach the edge, and it was spilling over like a fucked-up red water feature. They made their way to the back door, where they discovered Otis's body wedged against it like a human doorstop. "Did it put him here to block us?" Jenna asked. Liz shook at the thought of the thing having enough brain power to actively set up obstacles for them. Tyler stepped forward and grabbed onto Otis. That's when what was left of Otis's head rolled into view. Similar to Jerry, Otis was left hollowed out like a bucket. Only Otis's bucket was made entirely out of his skull. The face was totally gone. The skin slid off the head and flapped down wildly. Jagged pieces of bone edged up around the hole that still contained a few remnants of brain. A little spilled out of his bucket as his head turned to the side from Tyler dragging the body away. Jenna turned and immediately vomited all over the kitchen floor, an act that momentarily saved her life because the creature barreled right past her and slammed into Tyler. He didn't even see it coming. It crushed his body into the cabinets with such force that the wood exploded into shards. Tyler's head cocked back, gasping, revealing a massive piece of wood that had found its way into his throat. Blood flowed out of his neck and mouth. As if that wasn't horrible enough, the creature started tearing into his back with its large front paws. His clothes and skin were stripped away in long gashes. Liz stepped forward with the table leg still in hand, but Tyler locked eyes with her and mouthed the word, "Run," over and over again. Tears filled Liz's eyes, knowing she was about to lose another person she cared about. But there was no saving Tyler. He had already lost far too much blood, and the thing wasn't even done ripping into his back. Liz grabbed onto Jenna's arm and dragged her over to the basement door. The two flew down the stairs fast, too fast. Liz tripped near the bottom of the flight and fell, dragging Jenna with her. The impact of the floor knocked the wind out of Liz. She took long seconds to regain her breathing, seconds she didn't have. Jenna, who landed on top of Liz, came off relatively unscathed, was trying to help Liz to her feet. Once she was steady, Liz and Jenna beelined it for the bulkhead when a crash upstairs stopped them dead in their tracks. "Was that the back door?" asked Jenna. The two cautiously edged closer to the bulkhead when a low growl met them from the darkness beyond. The thing inched down into the basement, looking them over. Liz and Jenna slowly backed towards the basement stairs, but the thing leapt past them, cutting off their escape. Liz frantically looked around the overstuffed basement for any way out, but saw nothing. Nothing except the door made of cement, left halfway open, where Jerry was prying earlier. "This way," Liz yelled as she turned with Jenna and headed into the room. The room was not very big. It was entirely made of cement, and the walls, floor, and ceiling were all marked with some kind of star sigil, all roughly the same size and shape, except for the wall where the door was. That star sigil was slightly askew due to the door being open, taking away one of the star's points. This room was some kind of prison cell for this thing, Liz thought as she eyed the stars. She had no idea what this thing was, but she had a feeling that if they could get it back into this room, they could trap it here. The only problem was Jenna and her were both already in the room. There was no way they could both get out once that thing came in. There were old rotten bones in the far corner of the room, human from the look of them. Whoever they belonged to were probably used as bait to lure this thing in the last time somebody shut it in. The thing stood in the doorway, refusing to step into the room. It was clearly familiar with its old cell and didn't want to step back inside. "Listen, Jenna, I'm going to try and get this thing in here. And when it comes for me, you need to run out and push the door shut," Liz said. "I think once all these stars are intact, it'll seal it in here and it won't be able to leave." Jenna shot Liz a troubled look. "But what about you? You'll be trapped in here too." Liz gave Jenna a big hug. "Yeah, but you'll be safe. And that's more important to me." A growl from the creature made them step back. It was still in the doorway, not taking an inch forward. It was just waiting for them to try and run past it. Liz, who was still holding onto the table leg from before, took 2 steps closer to the beast and hurled it at him. It bellowed with rage but refused to take a step forward. Liz then went over to the skeleton in the corner and picked up what must be a femur bone or something, threw that at the creature too. This time, it struck directly in the creature's face, and that was all it took to snap the creature out of its fear of this room. It reared up, preparing to lunge for Liz. Liz took 2 massive steps back, getting herself right into the middle of the chamber, hoping this distance would give Jenna enough space to escape. The thing let out a quick bark as it went airborne. Liz closed her eyes and readied for the impact. It came almost instantly, but not from the front. Liz was knocked to the ground from behind and spun around quickly to see Jenna smiling down at her. Just before, she was driven backwards by a giant black freight train. It landed on top of Jenna in the far corner of the room and immediately went to work with its razor-sharp teeth. Liz got to her feet as fast as her body would allow and stumbled out of the chamber. The sound of Jenna's screams echoed around the basement as Liz struggled to push the cement door shut. Putting all her weight into it, the door began to move. When there were only a few inches left, Liz risked one final look into the room. The star sigil began to glow an eerie white color. The creature, which until this point had actively been killing Jenna, looked around, noticing the glow too. It spun its body around, eyeing the door, giving Liz one final glance of Jenna. She was already dead. The thing began to stalk towards the door, but something was different. Its movements were oddly slow, like it was wading across a powerful river, working against the current. Liz attributed this to the sigil. Before the thing could build up enough speed, Liz continued leaning into the door. Those last 4 inches took every ounce of strength that Liz had, but eventually the door shut tight. The creature slammed against the inside of the door, but the seal seemed to have worked because it didn't so much as budge. Liz took 2 steps back from the door, only the door wasn't there anymore. It was just a flat wall where the door used to be. She collapsed to the floor and started sobbing uncontrollably. She was alone again. The people she cared about were ripped right out of her life, just like before. Then she thought about Jenna. Her last-minute sacrifice saved Liz's life. "I was supposed to save you," Liz cried, "not the other way around." Liz sat on the floor of the basement for a long while, till something over by Jerry's crowbar caught her eye. It was a large piece of paper with lines all over it. "The blueprints," Liz said to herself. She walked over to them and picked them up and looked them over. Sure enough, right there off the basement, a hidden room. Sons of bitches, she thought. She rolled it up and walked over to the basement fireplace, stuck one end into the small flame. It caught instantly. She stared at the makeshift torch in her hand, mesmerized by its glow. She then stuck it into one of the dusty boxes and walked towards the bulkhead. Liz took one final look at the basement. The box she had placed the flaming blueprints in was already ablaze and spreading to the other boxes. A few scattered flames were even catching on some of the old wooden joists in the ceiling. She made her way up the bulkhead stairs and into the cool night. She turned and shut the bulkhead doors. Everyone was home. This has been a production of Fear Point. If you enjoy this episode and you're listening to it in podcast form, please follow and download the episode. It'll greatly help us. If you're listening to it on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thank you.